We are live. At least it says we're live. So we're live. If it says we're live, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 16. Tony Michael, it is episode 16 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit here on this Sunday, March the 24th, 2019. Tony, how the hell are you?
Well, I'm on cloud nine right now that a Halloween alum commented on one of my Instagram photos with the Michael Myers picture that I posted today. Scout Compton Taylor, however she pronounces her last name. I always mix the two up. She left me a nice little comment on the photo. So thank you. And I appreciate everybody giving me the compliments. I was super nervous to share it because I know the Halloween fans and how particular they are about their Michael Myers. And I wanted to do you guys right. And so far, it looks like I did. So doing great.
Yeah, if you guys haven't checked out that photo that Tony is talking about and you're not following him on Instagram, the link to Tony's Instagram is in the description. So make sure you follow him. If you have Instagram, follow him there. Now, for those of you that are asking if I have Instagram, I don't, not yet. Doesn't mean ever, but I don't. But if you want to follow me on Twitter or on Facebook, those links are in the description.
Like the shirt. Love the shirt.
Oh, this shirt here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had this shirt for a while. John Carpenter's Halloween. I've actually had the shirt for a while. Terrorthreads.com. If you want to get a shirt like this, go over to terrorthreads.com. They have I don't know them, they don't know me. It's not like they're paying me anything. I just like their shit. So if you like this and you want to check out their shit, terrorthreads.com is where you can go, and they have a ton of great Halloween shit. Not just Halloween, but they got a great ton of Halloween stuff. Probably some of the best artwork I've seen on Halloween merchandise.
Nice. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, on this episode of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit, Tony and I are going to be, because why the hell not, right? We're going to, we were kind of kibitzing back and forth thinking, like, do we do a top 10 of the entire series? Do we do a top 10 of each movie? Do we combine certain things? But then we realized that, well, maybe we should just, to kind of not bite off more than we can chew, why don't we take Tony's favorite of the series, my favorite of this, and before anybody starts coming down Tony's neck again, Tony's favorite is Halloween 4, but he acknowledges the best in the series is the first Halloween. Very much like how my favorite Indiana Jones is the Temple of Doom, but clearly the best one is Raiders, in my opinion. So they're not mutually exclusive. They can coexist, folks. You can like a movie that's the best, but still acknowledge that something else in the series is clearly the better movie when you look at sort of the bigger picture.
Well, it's like I said last week. If you ever seen that episode of Friends when Joey's out on his date and he eats his date's cake and he looks up and he says, "I'm not even sorry." I've kind of reached that point with 4 now. It's my favorite, and I'm not even sorry. I don't care. So if someone's gonna give me shit about it, well, then that's your problem. That's not my problem. It's still gonna be my favorite. Yeah. And I also think because when we're talking about our iconic favorite moments in this whole franchise, you knew that when it came to the original film, you and I were going to pick out pretty much the same ones for sure. So instead of picking out the same ones, we, like you said, we kind of like, well, wait, why don't we just do our top 10 favorites from Halloween and Halloween 4, so this way we're not cross-referencing each other, and saying the same thing. I thought it would be fun for why not, a little Halloween talk. We haven't talked about Michael in a few weeks,
Yeah, for sure. And for those of you that think that we're just going to continue to talk about Halloween all the time, don't fret. We have other topics coming up. We have other good, juicy things. Contrary to popular belief and how it might seem, Tony and I actually don't talk about Halloween a lot in terms of our main topic. When you go and look at our shows, we've actually talked more about other things than we have about Halloween. The problem doesn't actually lie with Tony and I. The problem lies with you guys.
Yeah,
I say that with a grain of salt because whenever we get to the Q&A, there's so many Halloween stuff. But every now and then it's nice to tackle Halloween. But we do have some good stuff coming up in the next little bit, including one next week. That'll be really exciting to do.
And the funny thing is, even in our personal, when we talk to each other offline and stuff, we don't really talk about Halloween, even though it's our favorite film. We hardly ever talk about the damn thing.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes it's nice to just do a fun thing like
Sure.
this. So, so who wants to go first? Who wants to go first? Tony, do you want to start with, well, or maybe we'll go back and forth. Like,
Why don't you kick it off first, and then I'll.
okay. Okay. So these are my top 10 most iconic moments from the original Halloween.
Okay.
And I mean, I think it's safe to say that the majority of these involve Michael Myers, obviously, because it's a very sort of centric, it's all about him, right? So it's not like there's, yeah, it's just that's what it is. These are the top 10 most iconic moments, and it was very difficult because there's clearly more than 10 iconic moments in the movie. So that's why it was difficult to sort of make a list. But these are definitely 10 of the most iconic moments. And I might throw some honorable mentions in down there. But let's start with my number 10. My number 10, and this is in order.
Okay. Mine is not, well, it's sort of in order. I'll let you know where I kind of mix it up a little bit, but go ahead.
Okay. Number 10 for me would be, and it's okay. Keep in mind that a moment, right? I don't know how Tony did his list because I don't know what his. I mean, I can sort of guess maybe a few things.
Mine as a scene, as a whole.
Right, exactly. So it's important to understand that a moment can be literally a moment, right? Like a shot, or it can be a moment as like a scene.
Yep.
Right. And or it can be a combination of the two. So just keep that in mind for those that are in the chat room. So number 10 for me in the original Halloween is at the very beginning of the movie when the POV shot looks up to the window and the lights go out. And of course, the music cue kicks in. From that moment, right the way through until the father takes off the mask to reveal that it's actually a 6-year-old child. That whole sequence, that whole moment is iconic for a number of reasons because, it's the big reveal that when the father takes off the mask and you realize, oh my God, it's actually a child. It's Michael. That's that. Oh my God. So everything we just saw, the sneaking around, the murder, and not just a murder with such visceral intent, like such madness and calculated coldness, and then you realize it's a fucking kid.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Like that sets the stage for everything to come. And remember, for a long time, people would always say, well, why are the parents just standing there not saying anything, right? And I would just because of how I know about the filmmaking process, I would say, well, what this is it's clearly a cinematic tableau, and most people understand that and agree with that. But I wanted to confirm with Dean Cundy whether or not that was exactly what it was intended to be. Why are the parents just there not doing anything? It's supposed to act like a snapshot in time of that moment, that big reveal. So for anybody who's still wondering why, or maybe you're on the fence of why the parents are just, I don't get it, why they're just standing there. Dean Cundy himself, you can go onto my channel, type in Dave McRae, Dean Cundy, watch the interview. He confirms exactly what I've said and exactly what a lot of people have always thought too. It is a tableau. It's a snapshot. That's why the parents are not reacting per se. But anyway, so that whole thing from the light up until that moment is my number 10 because that sets the stage for what's about to come.
Cool. Well, my number 10 is going to kick off with it's more of a joke. And if you are a fan of Halloween 4, like I am, and when I talk with people about the film, it's become kind of an inside joke. And that is the blonde Michael Myers moment that happens in the school house with Loomis, and they walk into each other. And Michael throws him through the door. I mean, look, as someone who does photography, and some days I could do up to like 3 houses on a given day. And when I'm doing real estate photography, I know what it's like to just totally forget and like miss something so obvious and go, oh my God, how could I have missed that moment? So I understand from the filmmaker's point of view that if they've been shooting all day and when they go into they call action and they go into that moment and film it, how they could overlook it. The director, anyways, I can give him the slide, but how the rest of the crew overlooked it, I can't give them a pass because I'm sorry. Like, you know, it's like, how the hell could you miss it? But the funny thing is it's become kind of an iconic inside joke moment now that I think people have sort of given it a pass. So I wanted to quickly throw that in there at my number 10, the what the fuck moment, because we kind of talked about that. Like, are we going to do any what the fuck moments from these two films? And that's my definitely what the fuck moment for sure.
Cool. Yeah, that is something that to this day I don't understand how the hell, you know, I mean, obviously we know this. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's that.
Yep, exactly. Okay, my number 9 most iconic moment from the original Halloween is the Myers Hedge scene. I mean, it's a moment that, like I've said, what's so fascinating about this is that nobody sees Michael Myers except for Laurie. And, you know, we have to remember that you know, that moment when they're walking down the sidewalk, it's so, there's a lot of symbolism there. You know, that they're walking down the sidewalk and Annie just so happens at that moment to go into her purse, and she's trying to find, you know, whatever the hell she's trying to find. And that's when Laurie sees Michael standing at the hedge. And there's this very sort of surreal, haunting, pending doom, right? You've often heard me say there's that storm that's coming, and that's what he is. All those things, whether it's through the, you know, the classroom or at the hedge or, you know, whatever the case, it's that coming, but it feels very targeted. It's a very targeted storm, you know, and it's very eerie, very simple, very, the way that he just is there and then moves in, but it's that simplicity. It's not the, you know, he doesn't go like this and kind of, he's always in control. When you look at the shape and you look at him, his movements, it's very calculated, very in control. He's not worried. He's not concerned about anything. That's one of the things that I talked about in my recent Halloween Resurrection rant, you know, videos, where I tried to make an argument about why the fuck would he switch suits? He doesn't, you know, Michael doesn't care about those things. He's very calculated, but very not worried. He's very focused, you know, and he wasn't worried about anybody else. He just was there. And it's not like he ran off into the bushes. He just stepped in behind a bush. And when they got there, there's that illusion of time, that supernatural element where it's like, well, wait a minute, how can he be gone so quickly? There doesn't seem to be you know, enough time has passed for him to do that. And that just, you know, creates that overall sort of feel of that was sort of the beginning for me. That, well, you could include through the window and getting in the car, suddenly not being there. But if you actually rewatch the movie, Laurie is interrupted by the teacher, right? She says, Laurie, answer the question, or something like that. And Laurie goes off. And if you think about it, as she's speaking, yeah, there is kind of enough time there for him to get in the car and drive away, which he obviously did do. Right. But there is kind of enough time there. But the bush scene is that one where you're like, yeah, maybe, but that's really kind of strange, you know? So that's, and how calm he was, you know? That's my number 9 for sure. It's iconic.
Absolutely, freaking literally. Mine would be, actually, it's funny you talk about the storm, because mine would be number 9, Michael's transfer out of the hospital that he's in. Soon as the nurse says, book him, and Alan Howard's version of the Halloween thing kicks in. I love that. And it's like you said, the storm is coming. It's raining outside. They're transferring him. They're putting him in the ambulance. Just that whole sequence, and leading up to even when, you know, he, you know, kills the doctors in the ambulance and whatnot. It's like you were just talking about. There, the metaphor in that sequence, the storm is here. He is the storm, and now it's coming back to Haddonfield. So it's kind of the symbolism of what you're talking about, parallel to very much to my number 9 as well too.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, it's a great scene. It's Yeah, because that's the first time that we actually hear the Halloween theme in Halloween 4. Because of course, as we all know, the Halloween 4 opening, which is considered by some to be the greatest of the franchise,
Sure.
doesn't have the theme, right? So now we're maybe 10 minutes into the movie now, and we haven't heard that iconic theme yet.
Right.
And that's the first time that we hear it. And then when you hear it goes dun 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 dun, and then on that second one, on the boom, that's when the thunder hits. So the thunder hits at the exact time where there's the boom. So yeah, it's cool. It's definitely a nice moment. Yeah, for sure.
And Howarth, I think we both agreed on this, for taking the reins with the soundtrack and the score. He did a really good job. He's not Carpenter, but I thought he did a great, for Halloween 4 soundtrack anyways. It's definitely one of my top 3s, between Halloween 78, 2018, and the 4th one.
Oh, for sure. And does anybody notice that right down there is a little VHS of Halloween 4? He's just hanging out. He's just hanging out.
James got Easter eggs in his office.
I do. Okay, let's see here. Number 8, right? Yeah, okay, number 8. Number 8 for me, most iconic moment in the original Halloween would be our first real sort of look at a real great representation of, well, no, I can't actually say that. That's actually not true. Because there is something that is before that. No, excuse me. I'm sorry. No, that is right. Sorry, I was reading them back to front. Yes, number 8. Number 8, sorry, is, yes, the very first. Now, this happens just after the bush scene. So my number 9 is the bush, right? And he's not really kind of like, he's there, but we see him step behind the bush. So we see the process for which he could potentially disappear, right? Does he step behind the bush and then take off like a sprinter? I mean, you know what I mean? We don't know, right? Like we don't know what, how that happens, but we see him actually step behind the bush, right? Okay. But in my number 8, it's the immediate follow-up to that. Carpenter doesn't let up. So he lets you think, well, that's kind of weird, right? It's kind of strange. Was there enough time? Wasn't there enough time? He plants that seed of doubt, right? But in my number 8, which is Laurie looking at Michael Myers standing in Mr. Riddle's backyard, what makes that scene so terrific is not just it's cool that you look and he's standing there amongst the flowing sheets. Yes, it's a cool image in and of itself. That's an iconic shot.
Sure.
But the moment, the scene is iconic because of what it represents, what it foreshadows to the potentiality of what, not just who, but what this is. And because she's looking at him standing in the backyard, she does not turn away. And he seems to almost dematerialize in front of her face because she's looking and then she doesn't, it's not like she turns away. She's just looking at him and then all of a sudden he's gone. And you can see her kind of go, she moves away from the window, shuts the window. She's kind of walking backwards. Of course, that's right before the phone rings and it's Annie, but she's there. And you can tell that there's that, did a sheet go up and was he able to get under the sheet and somehow I didn't see him? But for the audience, like that's what she would be thinking, right? Like we as the audience know that, no, it literally just looked like he vanished. Like how did that, but for her, she would have been thinking like, what the, okay, now something's not right here. Like this is really, so that is almost that staple following up from the Hedge scene where it's like, yeah, what you thought may have been happening at the Hedge scene, yeah, is happening, and that's sort of that follow-up. And now for the viewer, not just the characters, but for the viewer, it's that, oh shit, this isn't just a matter of who, it's a matter of what, and that's that element that's there, right? He's still human, but there's that, what? So that's my number 8.
It's actually funny that you say that is your number 8 because mine is a very parallel, similar scene in Halloween 4, which is the first time Loomis sees Michael. very similar when you talk about how he's there behind, Laurie's looking down at him, and the next thing you know, he basically evaporates. It's the exact same sequence. It's that buildup where, Loomis is talking to Michael, why now? Why after all these years? Leave him alone. And then you get this real cool, almost like a Ken Burns-like effect where the camera zooms in on Michael. Loomis shoots, but he evaporates and he's gone. You don't see him walk out of the scene. You just see the bullets fly, hit a couple of the, plates in the restaurant, and then he's off and running. You hear the truck start, and, Loomis comes out there, Michael, and starts shooting at the truck. And then, Donald Pleasance gets his credited one action scene in Halloween where he dives into the, garbage.
I doubt that was Donald Pleasance.
You don't think?
No, I doubt it.
I mean, it's not that hard of a stunt.
No. But I would be very surprised if it was him. Very surprised. Yeah, I doubt it was. It could be. It absolutely could have been. But I doubt it. But it may have been.
It's funny though how we're talking about these two movies and how similar they are in a lot of ways, but different at the same time. You know what I mean? Like you can definitely, now that we're talking about it, you can definitely get this feel that the writer really was using the original Halloween as his platform, as you just talked about that scene, because the scene there with Loomis is very similar to what we were just talking about. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. There's a lot of, yes. I mean, like for or hate for, there was definitely an intention to emulate the style, certain things that they wanted to sort of give that feel to. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Okay, my number 7 is when Annie is talking on the phone to Paul,
one of my period.
And Michael Myers is standing behind her in the doorway, just outside there. And she walks into frame, and then she walks her over here. And then as she's covering him and he's gone.
Yeah.
And it's that they're not there. Now, was there enough time technically for him to kind of just dart out? Sure. But it's done so quickly and so flawlessly that by this point in the movie, you're beginning to understand what this guy or whatever he is, his MO is, right? Yeah. We haven't seen him run. We haven't seen him sprint. We haven't seen him dash, right? We haven't seen him. So there would be no reason for the viewer, for us to think that he was there. And then when she was in front of the camera, he just went, and took off. Like there'd be no reason for us to think that. So it's very eerie, because by this point in the movie, we've experienced the hedge scene. We've experienced the bush, the backyard scene. We're already kind of locked in there now, where it's like, this is, damn, what is going on here? So it's iconic. I mean, I emulated it in my fan film The Night He Came Back, when, the actress is there on the phone and she leans into and of course, I'm at the door as Michael, and she leans into the frame to cover the door, leans back, and I'm gone. I mean, that's his MO. That's what he does.
The leading line that Cundy did when, the juxtaposition with Annie there and Michael, he wasn't really silhouetted, but he was split light with the hard shadow and half of his face lit. Well, that's a combination of Cundy and also Tommy Lee Wallace, who was the set designer, and of course Carpenter's direction. The three of them, just the composite of that, like from a photographer point of view, I giddy over that scene all the time. All the time I giddy, because it's just like such a well composed shot that if you're a photographer, you know what they're doing on the technical side of it, and that's what makes that shot so great.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Absolutely. All right, your number.
What are we up to? 7? Yeah. So my number 7 is Brady versus Michael. Now, of course, we all know in Halloween 4, Brady tries to be the little player and, plays off of the sheriff's daughter and Rachel. But he does kind of hold his own for a brief moment there in his confrontation with Michael. He doesn't act like a little bitch. It's probably one of my favorite kills. I was thinking about all the kills in Halloween 4, and there were a lot of good ones, but I thought that one, just, altogether, as far as like the buildup of the music, Howarth, brought in the Shape Stock soundtrack theme, I should say. That's because that's one of my favorite Halloween scores that Carpenter did, that dun, dun, dun. And I liked what Howarth did in that, and the whole buildup with Michael walking up the stairs. You know, again, the critique that I would give to that is the same thing that we've talked about. You know, Wilbur with the shoulder pads, it's got to fucking go. You know, just a couple of those things. I get they were trying to convey that Michael was, you know, this big broody guy in this film, but again, I think it takes it away. And I see some of the comments that people are mentioning in the comment section, and I agree with you, Guy. The mask, had the mask been altered a little bit, you know, 100%. But you can't take away from the suspense that that scene created when you've got Jamie and Rachel up on the top of the staircase, you know, come on, get up here, get up here. And you got this whole buildup of Michael walking slowly up to, you know, that moment with Brady. You know, Brady needs to learn how to first load a shotgun a lot faster than he did. And then when he finally gets it off, it's, you know, he has that brief confrontation. I thought that that was a well built up dramatic moment in the movie that, you know, you can't take away from it, between the music and how everything was, you know, happening around them between Rachel and Jamie and Brady and Michael himself. Any thoughts on that scene?
Yeah, it's one of the better scenes in Halloween 4 because it's a moment that sort of, like you said, you know, you've been building to. I agree. I'm not crazy on George P. Wilbur as the Shape, and certainly with the shoulder pads, and you know, there's but like the scene in and of itself, the lighting is really cool. The big bay picture window there with some light coming in, and it's a nice set. It's a nice location for something like that to go down. Now, imagine having like a better mask. I mean, oh my God, you know, you just raise it up tenfold, right? So
exactly. So number 6.
Number 6 for me would be definitely Donald Pleasance and his famous the very first time we hear his famous speech.
Full disclosure, me and Dave did not do talk about our list before the stream, and you'll understand why in a moment. I just said that. Go ahead.
All right. This is the only real, well, not the only, but this is definitely one of the only real bits of exposition that we have from Dr. Loomis, giving us insight into not who we're dealing with, but what we're dealing with. Because remember, at the beginning of the movie, Dr. Loomis says, we must not underestimate it. And Marion Chambers says, I think that's her name, right? Yeah. She says, don't you think we can refer to it as him? And he says, if you say so. Which is why I always thought that Laurie, having come to terms with what Michael is, should never have said, I've been waiting for him, he's been waiting for me. It should have been, I've been waiting for it, it's been waiting for me. I always think that was a lost, it would not have necessarily made all the rest of the things that I thought they botched. But definitely that would have been really cool. So yes, it's that moment where he's in the Myers house with Sheriff Brackett, and the sheriff basically leads him into this moment by saying, seems to me you're just plain scared. And he said, yeah, I am. You know, I watched him for 15 years, sitting in a room, staring at a wall, not seeing the wall, looking past the wall, looking at this night, inhumanly death has come to you. Oh no, that's another one. I was thinking of the one by the bush, but you know the one I'm talking about. In the house. Yeah, the one where he says, I watched him for 15 years, sitting in a room, staring at a wall, not seeing the wall, looking past the wall, looking at this night, inhumanly patient. I think that's, wait a minute, no, is that the one at the fuck, I'm getting this mixed up now.
Right?
Yeah. That's the one in the Myers house, right?
Yeah, in Judith's room, just before the thing.
Right. Yeah. There's two. There's the one he does outside by the bush as well. Yeah. So anyway, the one he does with Brackett in the room, where it gives us a bit of exposition, you know, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes, all that. I mean, that gives us that's all we need to know. We don't need to know anything more. It was compartmentalized into this small paragraph of exposition that doesn't tell us anything, but tells us enough to the potentiality of what we're dealing with. And that's why I am not a proponent of doing a Halloween TV series that tells Michael's, you know, younger years at Smith's Grove. I don't want to know that. All I know is, and again, for people who think that he literally was just sitting in a room staring at a wall, not seeing the wall, look, I mean, obviously he got up to go to the bathroom. Obviously when nurses came in, he would, look over at them, or he might nudge, or he was catatonic. So he didn't, necessarily respond or speak, right? We know that, but he wasn't just like this for 15 years. I mean, obviously he would get up, he'd go to the bathroom, he'd eat, and he had to eat or he wouldn't be alive. But what Dr. Loomis was saying there, the point he was trying to make, is because he needs the sheriff to take him seriously. You don't know who I watched him. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil. He's trying to let the sheriff, no, he's trying to get the sheriff on his side, because Sheriff Brackett, for most of the movie, is skeptical, right? He doesn't, he thinks that, okay, maybe he's come back, but he's not fully on board. So it's just a beautiful bit of, I don't want to say hyperbole, because I think that might be a little too strong of a word, but Loomis is using little bits of hyperbole to help emphasize his point. Like, I watched him, just sitting in a room staring at a wall. He's obviously, it's not literally all he did, but that's that. It's to make the sheriff understand that this is a child that did nothing,
right?
That said nothing,
yep, that
had no interests. That's it. Like he's using that to, like, dude, you fucking listen to what I'm saying. Like how does he? You know what I'm saying? So that whole scene, that bit of exposition there, is so meaty and good, because it's our first time. Yeah, we get the little bit where it's like, an all points bulletin and a roadblock wouldn't stop a 5-year. Like, you get all these little bits of things that he says to Dr. Wynn and all that kind of stuff. But that's the meat. That's right there where you're like, whoa, fuck. So that's my number. That's my number 6. It's an iconic moment, and the dialogue is just so great, and it's all we needed to know about him, and all we ever needed to know about him, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it's fun. Like I said here before, Dave gave his number 6. I swear to you guys, on anything, me and Dave did not talk about our list beforehand. So my number 6, my lead in, just as an honorable mention before I get to the scene itself, is, the Loomis, where he talks to the doctor and he talks about how he prayed for 10 years that it would go away. And he's like, look at me. And he shows him the scarring, what happened. Such a great moment between him and that doctor. But the actual scene that I want to get into is the scene with him and Meeker, and he's there at the police station. Pleasant's performance in that scene is one of my favorite performances. Like, Dave said, my favorite Pleasant performance is definitely that scene that Dave was talking about in the original film with him and Brackett. But you cannot underestimate the delivery and performance that he gives to Sheriff Meeker when he shows up to the police station, and Michael's been locked away before she's been born, and he's not taking Loomis seriously, and he's about to walk away, and he's like, a gas station in flames. I tell you, Michael Myers is in this town, and he's here tonight, and he's here to kill anybody's in his way, and that little girl too, or whatever. I don't know. I'm paraphrasing the line.
Right.
Just that whole performance in itself, man, it's such a great, just classic Loomis, great, delivery by Donald Pleasance. And
he looks like he's gonna have an aneurysm. Yeah. I mean, he's sitting there and he's like, what does he say? A fuel station in flames. Right. From here to Richmond. Sheriff, I'm telling you, Michael Myers is here in this town. He's here to kill that little girl and anybody who gets in his way. I mean, he's just like, he looks like he's gonna have a fucking stroke. He's so passionate.
And to me, again, next to the Meeker, Brackett's scene there, it's probably my second favorite Loomis scene. So right. We did not disclose this, so the fact that we're going in the order
No. And I just want to say that because I got these a few things back to front, so I'm going to make an on the fly edit here while we're doing this live. I'm going to combine in my number 6. I'm going to combine because they're very much connected. I'm going to combine the Loomis moment in the house with Brackett and the bush scene with Brackett as my number 6. because what he says in the house is, I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left, no reason, no conscience, no understanding, even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, good or evil, right or wrong. I met this, 6-year-old child, blank, pale, emotionless face, and the blackest eyes, devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized what living behind that boy's eyes purely and simply evil. That's what he says in the house. What he says by the bushes, I watched him for 15 years, sitting in a room, staring at a wall, not seeing the wall, looking past the wall, looking at this night, inhumanly patient, waiting for some secret silent alarm to trigger him off. Death has come to your little town, sheriff. Now you can either ignore it or help me to stop it. Those two, because they're so connected, I'm going to put those two as my number 6, because that's all you need to know. And as far as I'm concerned, all you ever needed to know, like I said a few moments ago, about who or what we're dealing with.
What did Brackett say? More fancy talk?
Yeah, he said, yeah, more fancy talk. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I just want to I know. But you're right. My second favorite Loomis performance is probably that in part 4, because he
doesn't want people to go through what happened 10 years ago. And he's like trying to tell Meeker, come on, dude. Like, he's here. Like, listen.
Yes, right. And you see the arc of his character. Like, if you go back to how he was responding to Brackett in part 1, right? He's like, I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left, no reason, no conscience, no red about, and he's just sort of like, he's trying to, but then you fast forward 10 years and an explosion in a hospital and 15 people dead later, or like whatever the thing is, he's there. He's like, I'm telling you about it. He's had it.
Right.
Like, he's had it. So we see that transition, that arc with his character, that now it's like, listen, shut the fuck up, because, maybe if people had listened to me 10 years ago, we might have not have, maybe, I don't know, so you got to listen to me, So yeah, I agree with you.
Cool. What's your number 5?
My number 5 would be, my number 5 is also it's my number 5, right? Yeah. My number 5 is, wait a minute here. What do I have here? Do I have this right? Hang on. 1 second here. Where's the Hedge scene? Oh, I see what I did. I put that up there. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. My number 5 is Michael Myers breaking the closet. So when he's standing there and he's breaking the closet, Tommy Lee Wallace, folks, breaking the closet, peers in, looks down to his left at Laurie. That whole sequence right there, that whole closet sequence up to the moment where Michael, of course, falls onto the ground is just iconic, because there's nowhere left for Laurie to go. There's nowhere for her to go. This is it. She has to fight for her life here. And this was an extremely memorable moment. I mean, this is the climactic moment of the entire movie. So that definitely is memorable and iconic. The closet breaking, it's been replicated I don't know how many times in fan films. I obviously in my most recent tiny little concept short there, I had my own little version of it. It seems to be a fan film go-to, or something that's a lot of fun to shoot and recreate your own version of, and it is iconic. So definitely.
For sure. It's on my list of, the photo I shared on Instagram today at the staircase. Obviously that was my, from the original film, and Michael walking out in front of the staircase there where, Laurie falls down. That's where the idea came from. And I already have the closet scene from Halloween that I had to recreate that, make it my own. I'm obviously not going to be able to get the exact closet, but you're right. That's one that a lot of people duplicate over, and why not? It's such a great moment in the movie.
It's a great moment. I love when he hits the light and the light turns on and then turns off.
Yep.
So you just see the flash, on his face, and then of course he's silhouetted by the backlight, which is behind him, and it's great. It's that bump ding 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 ding,
yep.
Like everything's just going. It's like, what the fuck's gonna? And watching that in 1978, not having been desensitized by all the wild, crazy shit we've experienced in Hollywood over the last 30, 40 years, that would have been absolutely terrifying. Terrifying. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, my number 5 is also a closet scene in Halloween 4, and that is, I'm telling you, I swear to God, guys, we did not plan this, but
no, we didn't. No, we didn't.
It's Jamie's nightmare. Jamie's nightmare when she picks up the picture of her mother, Lori. I thought that was a great connection to the first 2 films. That's how you properly tell a story without retconning anything and starting a whole new timeline. Whatever fans want to say about Halloween 4, about the mask, I get it. About the shoulder pads, I get it. But you can't argue the fact that the writers did a great job at keeping the continuity of the franchise together intact, not going off the rails just yet. And that sequence there, when she's realizing that, the great thing about that and the symbolism of it, it's almost like you wonder if maybe Lori did talk to her about, her brother. And because at the time, Michael's still her brother. And it makes you wonder, like, these nightmares that Jamie's having of this boogeyman when she's trying to get out, and she's frantically, and hats off to Danielle Harris's performance, by the way. You can't undermine that for an 8-9-year-old girl who's
absolutely not
screaming off the top of her lungs. Wilbur's behind her. He stands up from the bed and she's trying to open up the door, and then he's in front of the door. Like, that whole nightmare sequence was just well filmed and well put together. And again, it was a great way of how they tied in the first 2 films. And again, guys, I swear to you, we're not planning this, but yeah, that would definitely be my number 5, is the closet scene with Danielle Harris and Jamie's nightmare. Anything you want to add to that scene?
Well, my 2 favorite moments in that scene is when he sits up on the other side of the bed and the lightning flashes it and you see his face. And then when she opens the door and he's there and he goes like this with the knife down at her, it's great. It's great. Yeah, no, it's fun. It's fun. Like, it really is terrifying. So yeah, I agree with what you've said.
Very
okay, my number 4 is well, it's got to be again, it's a scene, and it's definitely the scene when Lori is upstairs and she's huddled in the corner after finding her dead friends, and Michael Myers' face slowly emerges from the darkness and stabs her on the shoulder. She falls over the railing. That whole sequence, right from the beginning of that, there's so many wonderful shots. Michael coming down the stairs, and then, of course, the railing, the light that's casting onto him as he's coming down. You see the jagged rails of the staircase on his suit as he's coming down. Like, it's beautiful, and she goes through the door, runs across, help me, oh my God, somebody help me, and running across. And of course it ends with Nick Castle walking across the street, you know what I mean, as she's trying to get in. Tommy, the keys, like, just that whole sequence, because that is the first time in a Halloween movie we hear the shape stocks.
Yeah.
That is the first time we've ever heard bum, 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 bum. That's it. That's the moment. And it's one of the most iconic moments in the movie, and just the way it plays out. And like I said, in 1978, it would have been absolutely terrifying. So right from the moment that, Dean Cundy turns up the dimmer and, we kind of see his face come out of the darkness a bit, right from that moment, and the way he comes to the top of the stairs, Nick Castle just comes to the top of the stairs like this, like he's ready.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then he just starts coming down, and he's not coming down like a robot, like Dick Warlock did in H2, where he's just kind of doing this. No, he's coming down with purpose. He's not sprinting down, but he's coming down, dare I say, quickly, and he's got intent. He's got intent.
You ever notice a little knife pass he does? Where he switches
yes,
to one hand?
Yes.
I always wondered why he did that. Like, why he did that little pass from one hand. I don't know if it was because is he naturally right-handed or left-handed, if that was the reason why he did it. But it was, or if it was just because it flows with the scene. I mean, it really
does. It does. Yes, it does. Yes, I have noticed that. That's when he's at the top of the stairs as he's making his way around to the as he's at the railing, making his way around to the top of the stairs. You see him kind of go like this, and he walks around. He passes the knife to the other hand. Yes, it's great. Yeah, I don't. It might have just been. It may not have been. He might not have been directed to do that.
Yeah.
It might have been something that he just did. In the moment, he might have just, when Carpenter said action, Castle may have just been holding it in the wrong hand, or just decided to switch the hand as he did that. It might just, you know, and
natural when he does it. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. For sure. You know, but you know, what seems like, calculated, and it might just be something that's I just switch hands and they happen to get it on camera, you know, but it works. So that whole scene for me is definitely, my number 4.
Awesome. My number 4 is one of my favorite scenes with my brother. We used to reenact this scene a lot as kids. It's the truck scene. It's where Michael throws the hillbillies off the truck. No, they're already off. It's when he throws Earl out of the truck, and Rachel gets the door. She closes it and she gets the truck in gear. And Howarth hits that Halloween theme music, and then you get the Halloween theme going while Rachel's driving up, you know, the road, and you got the music, you got the wide shots, you got the tight shots, you know, he's grabbing her shirt and the music's playing, the whole suspense is being built up. Me and my brother, I shit you not, we reenacted that shit so many times as kids, because like my mom had a pickup truck for a while that she brought from my grandfather, so I'd get up on top of the truck with our old 1990s bullshit Michael Myers mask that we had, and I'd be reaching in there pretending like I'm Michael trying to get him out, and then I'd fall over and whatnot. So yeah, to me, you know, again, it's my argument on why Halloween 4 is such a great film, is that they really did a great job at building up a suspenseful scene, and that is another scene that is well done, and it just all around great suspenseful buildup. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, it's the only thing I get what you're saying. I know that in the initially when he tears the neck, it's Earl, right? That's
Earl. It's Earl.
Yeah. When he tears the neck and you see all the blood, that actually wasn't that was reshoots.
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of, no, it's definitely, it's one of the better scenes in Halloween 4. Yep, for sure. It's fun. How he ends up on the truck, who knows? And I always kind of thought, how did Earl and everybody not hear this massive shenanigan, this massive fight going on in the cab behind, or like in the truck? You know, like they don't hear this, but you can see that the filmmakers were aware, because you see Earl's eyes kind of, you know, looking around like he hears something, but he's not sure where it's coming from. You know what I mean? So
well, here's the thing. I think the problem was, and I can't say for sure, I'd have to ask the filmmakers on this. I think they saw the payoff, which was the epic truck scene, which with Michael on top and Rachel's driving. And I think they figured that, like, they wanted that shot. And it's such a great shot. I think they just had a hard time of like, how are we going to tell it? You know, the lead up to it. Because I agree with you. Like Michael hanging off the back of the truck the whole way, it's like, your head scratching, like, okay, is that really even physically possible?
Yeah.
You know? But I understand why, because it's the payoff that you get, which is so great. If I could have told it, I don't know, is there any way you could have told it different to get to that moment? I don't think you
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I need to watch the movie again and see what leads up to that scene.
Right.
And see if there's something, oh, well, if they'd done that, then that would have made more sense. And then
right.
I have to watch the film again. Not off the top of my head, but
right. And even someone mentions here too, because it's very true. The cop, you know, remember when the cops flag him down, and like the cops don't see him hanging, like, yeah, like there's
right.
Like I think they don't. I think they didn't think it through, because I figured, my gut feeling is they filmed the payoff scene, because you're right, because they went back and they refilmed the Earl scene, the neck getting pulled off. They filmed this epic payoff scene with Rachel and Michael on the truck and all this stuff, and I think they kind of just half-assed it on explaining that. And I wish they had thought about it a little bit better to give us something, a good lead up to that payoff.
Right. Unless Michael was fucking Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he's literally under the truck hanging by the exhaust. And then he crawls himself out, and that's when he comes up over. You see his arm and his thing come up over. That's I guess that's what he was doing. He was a big fan of Indiana Jones or something like that.
So what do we have? Number 3?
Yes, yeah, we're at my number 3. So my number 3 is going to be definitely Bob. I mean, it's Bob and Linda, and that is my number 3. Bob and Linda, when he kills Bob, this is the first moment that we see the head tilt. Right. And of course, then he goes up and he kills Linda. And the reason why I'm combining these two, even though they're two separate scenes, and I can tell you right now, on the shot list for the day, they would have been definitely categorized as two separate scenes.
Sure.
But I'm combining them because there's two iconic things that happen in there that are part of that. Well, one is part of Michael's MO. The other is the first time we actually get a real close look at his mask. Yeah. So we have Michael come out of the pantry or whatever he was in there, stabs Bob, has to be the strongest butcher knife in human history. Okay, like fuck Michael being supernatural. That butcher knife to hold up a 185 pound man is unbelievable. But anyway, and of course, and you notice Cundy's got like this little key light like shining onto the knife. Like you could actually like, it's like the knife has its own light or something. It's awesome. But anyway, so he's standing there and he admires his work, right? Tilts his head. He goes like this, goes like this. By the way, for anybody in the chat room who likes to dress up as Myers and is making a fan movie and likes to do the head tilt, whatever you do, don't go like this. Don't go like this. Don't do this. It's not like that. It's very subtle. It's just like this. Just like this. That's all you got to do. Well, just like that. As if you're actually admiring it.
It's funny you talk about that because on my Michael Myers photo shoot today that I did with my friend who dressed up as Myers, I was very conscious of making sure the light or the knife was also lit. That you saw the knife and it's because of Cundy's consciousness of making sure that we see it. That's the reason why I subconsciously kept thinking, okay, make sure I get the knife in the shot. Make sure that the knife are lit as well too.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So that's iconic because it like, look, it's a cool scene. He kills Bob, pins Bob up to the wall with a butcher knife. All that is cool. But what makes the scene so iconic is that is one of the first scenes that we can point. That is the first scene we can point to where Michael Myers does the, famous head tilt or whatever. And and then of course, what follows that is him going upstairs. Now we see Michael at close range when he's killing Bob, but half of the mask is in shadow. We don't really get a good look, right? Like it's kind of a lower angle shot. We're looking up. So Michael looks very ominous and intimidating. And you kind of see his mask, like, more so than maybe we have, but it's still quite dark, right?
Yep.
Relatively. So then when he comes upstairs, he's got the ghost sheet on. I mean, that's iconic. The ghost sheet with the thing and see anything you like and goes up and he kills Linda. And that's the moment when he lifts his head up into frame and puts the phone to his ear.
Can we take a moment of silence for PJ So's boobs?
Yeah. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, which sometimes are cut off by the letterbox or depending on the version you have. But anyway, so and if it's shown on TV, if it's shown on broadcast TV, they always cut that off. But so that moment when he lifts his head up into frame, that is the first moment in the entire movie that we are seeing him at real close proximity, that we are getting a real good look at the mask.
Yep.
And it's like, wow, like that's it. That's our first real good. Yes, we saw it at the bush. Yes, we saw it across the street. Yes, we saw it in Mr. Riddle's backyard. Yes, we saw him when he was stabbing Bob, but this is the first time that we're actually seeing it really close up. So as he lifts his head into frame, it's like, there he is, our first real good look. So that's why I put those two together.
Do you like it? Me personally, I think everyone's taste is different. I've always liked it, and it's probably why my photographs are going to reflect that, the negative space that Michael's in the scene versus the close-up.
Oh, 100%. Look, it all depends on, like, it depends on what you're trying to convey, right? I mean, close-ups are great.
Sure.
But they convey different feelings, different intentions. They allude to different things. A lot of the time, negative space is used because you want, even if the audience doesn't realize this consciously, you want that overall arcing feeling that there's things lurking in that negative space, that there's things in the dark, that anything is possible. He could be anywhere. So when you have your protagonist maybe in a house, right, and they're lit, maybe they're only lit by a flashlight, right? And they're there, but you might frame it so there's a lot of blackness over here. And you do that because it presents this uneasy sort of feeling. Even if the audience doesn't realize it consciously, there's that sort of that feeling that what is in the darkness, what is in the blackness, right? Rather than, and that feeling of the girl with the light there in the scene is much, again, depending on what you're going for, right? Because this can be quite dramatic as well. But sometimes when you have that space, it all depends on what the intent is from the director and what you're trying to tell in that scene. So it can be used for both. But yeah, no, definitely. There was a lot of negative space used in the original film. Oh, yeah. For sure. Yeah. So that would be my number. I guess that's my number 3, I guess.
Yeah. My number 3 is same with Dave. It's a hybrid. It's the opening credits to Halloween 4 mixed in with the trick-or-treat scenes that they shot in Halloween 4. I thought of all the Halloween films, the opening scene totally opening credits totally executed the Halloween harvest fall vibe.
100%.
No other Halloween film has ever nailed it like the opening of Halloween 4. Not the original, not the second, not 2018, nobody. And why no one has ever used that as a formula to make a Halloween film is beyond me. This is a town set in the Midwest farm town. When you guys follow me on Instagram and you see the photos that I'm doing, you're going to get the feel of where Michael Myers should be, because that's what I'm using as my platform for my photographs. I live in Georgia. I live around a lot of farmland. So I'm using that because this is a Haddonfield, Illinois, set in the Midwest farm town community. You never get that in any other film, but you get it in the beginning of 4. And also the trick-or-treating sequence. I'm not saying that the original doesn't have it. I thought the execution of the trick-or-treating scenes, because it is Halloween after all, was well done in Halloween 4.
Well, I mean, the original doesn't really have, I mean, look, there's the moment that Laurie comes home just before she goes inside her house and she sees Michael Myers, Mr. Riddle's backyard. And of course, she sees those kids trick-or-treating out when it's quite bright out. I mean, if she's just coming home from school, I never quite understood this. She's coming home from school. So what? It's what? Look, what?
2 o'clock in the afternoon if you're a high school student.
Yeah, exactly. Or I mean, maybe 3:30 at the latest.
Right.
Right. I mean, when I was in high school, we'd get out about 3 o'clock. And depending on where you are, like in Canada or the US, usually, in North America, it might differ from province to province here in Canada or state to state. But generally speaking, it's going to be probably anywhere between 2:30 and 3:30, right? Somewhere in there. So if she's home, then say she gets home, let's say around 3:30, let's say, or whatever it is, or even 3:45, let's say. Well, I mean, it seems a little early for these kids, and they don't look like little babies, like toddlers, where you might take your little kiddies out early, because. So I always was kind of like, it's kind of weird. But anyway, there's that. And then, of course, as Michael is walking across the street to the Wallace house to stand behind the tree, I believe there's a couple of trick-or-treaters that go by.
You don't really see them.
No, you don't. It's just that was just there as filler to give that ambient sort of overall, hey, it's Halloween. Let's make this moment here let's remind the audience that, oh, yeah, it is Halloween. There are trick-or-treaters out there. Yep. Now, you can't really fault the original Halloween when it comes to the autumn vibe and feel, because this was a movie shot for $325,000, give or take. It was a low budget independent film. They shot in and around where they could in Pasadena and in West Hollywood to do their best to mimic the Midwest. Yeah. And they did. I mean, they had, a bunch of leaves that they, scatter out, and, okay, it works. Maybe it's just an unusual green autumn. Sure. But when you get to Halloween 4, yeah, I mean, they were shooting in Salt Lake City, Utah, and they were utilizing sort of that real, and no doubt in post, they were color correcting certain things to add, to bring out those oranges a bit, or those browns, those dull orangey brown colors that you see sort of in fall. And why no
thought of that. Like
No.
Halloween, October, fall, you know? And then on top of that, like you said, for transitional scenes or like for filler scenes, when they had those trick or treat scenes in Halloween 4, I thought that was great. I'm like, it's Halloween. I would expect to see kids trick or treating. I know in the 2018 film, before someone says that, yes, they did that. I get it. So I'm not saying Halloween 4 is the only film that did it, but it was the first one to execute it, to have trick or treaters. And of course, you know, being an 80s kid myself, and I'm the same age, as pretty much the same age as Daniel Harris, those type of costumes that those kids were wearing, that's what you and I were wearing as kids, man. The
Absolutely.
plasticky, you know, like with the mask that came over and shit. So, but yeah, you know, that's for sure. The hybrid of those, the opening credits and the trick or treat scenes, was a nice added touch for Halloween 4, and that's my number 3.
Number 3. Cool. Okay, so we're on to my number 2, correct?
Yes, sir.
My number 2. My number 2 is Dr. Loomis looking over the balcony. Looking over the balcony and seeing Michael Myers gone. That is my number 2. And the reason, some people might be surprised to learn that it's not my number 1, but it is my number 2 because it is, you know, undoubtedly one of, certainly at its time. And for those of you, I encourage people to go back. You have heard me say this ad nauseum on this channel. Leading up, when I first began to put my face out there on this channel and people began to follow me and subscribe to me and hear what I had to say about Halloween, one of the things that I used to say a lot was Halloween, the original Halloween, which the original intention, what it was going to be one film and that was it, right? It was this Hitchcockian Twilight Zone kind of ghost story. You've heard me say that a lot. Well, go back and watch, now that Jordan Peele's got a new incarnation of the Twilight Zone, some of you might be very interested in that. Go watch old episodes of the Twilight Zone, or go watch old episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Yeah. You know, watch those, and it does play out that way. It's very, the original Halloween is not a slasher film. It falls into the slasher category because of its subsequent sequels. So that's why it falls into that category. If Halloween had just remained Halloween and there had never been a sequel, okay, Halloween today would not be considered a slasher. No. It's a psychological thriller. It's like a ghost story. It's a ghostly thriller kind of thing. And it's got that Twilight Zone kind of vibe. And that ending, when Loomis looks over the balcony and sees him gone, is classic Twilight Zone, classic Alfred Hitchcock. And when he sees him and he's gone, and then he looks up, we all know, right? Loomis was like, how do you want me to play this? Oh my God, he's gone, or I knew this would happen, right? Now, they did shoot it both ways, but Carpenter obviously chose the one that made the most sense, which was looking over the balcony and having the look on his face of, I knew this was going to happen. And of course he would know this. To have him go, oh my God, he's gone, wouldn't make any sense to Donald Pleasant's character because he knows so much. He's his doctor. He watched him for 15 years, sitting in a room, not seeing the wall and all that kind of shit. I watched him for 8 years, spent another 7 trying to keep him locked up. He spent 50, he knows him. So it wouldn't make logical sense for his character to go, oh my God, he's gone. No, it's, oh shit. I knew this was going to happen. But that's classic Twilight Zone ending. And then, of course, the movie ends. It ends there with the different shots of where he could be or where he's been, with his breathing, symbolizing to the viewer that he, as Laurie says, it was the boogeyman. And right. Dr. Loomis says, as a matter of fact, it was. And that's the message of the movie. It was the boogeyman. And the message is he's there. He's out there. He'll always be there. And that was the breathing that you were hearing, right? It's symbolizing that he's out there. He's everywhere. And that was the end of the story. That was it. That was the end of the story. It's classic Twilight Zone, whodunit, Hitchcockian kind of thing. So that's my number 2. That's my number 2. It's iconic for sure. Not just in the look, but what it represents overall.
No, I agree with you. I want to come back to that because it sort of ties into with my last 2 here, but I want to come back and talk about this scene with you here in a moment. My number 2 is the rooftop scene. The rooftop scene in Halloween 4 when Rachel's carrying Jamie on her back. Again, you know, great way of building up suspense in this film with Michael, you know, climbing up to the rooftop and then walking slowly over to her, and Rachel's lowering Jamie down, and then Jamie falls down, and Michael takes a swipe at Rachel, and Rachel goes tumbling down to the, you know, chimney, and what, just that whole scene, the music and everything, again, just well done. You know, great buildup, great suspense, great execution of storytelling when you're trying to, you know, create this really suspense and intense moment between Rachel, Jamie, and Michael, till you know, Rachel falling off the roof and Jamie getting lowered down. Again, which is a great moment in that film. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, it is. Although I always feel that it's a scene that almost needed something else. And of course, when you read the original plan, which was the roof was going to be on fire.
Right.
And there was going to be this fire that was going to light it. And when I read that, I remember thinking, oh, now that I would have loved to have seen.
Like, it just would have amplified. The rooftop scene is so great. It would have just amplified it even more so.
It would have been that accent. It's like it would have been that.
Because now you got the threat of the fire the girls are trying to get away from, plus Michael. Like, it was, I wish they would have went for it, you know?
Exactly. It's the equivalent of take for example, the lease on my car is up at the end of this year. So obviously I have to think about, you know, either trading it in or buying it out. And I usually get a new car every, you know, 4 or 5 years or whatever. And so, you know, I'm looking at new ones and things like that. And right now, you know, my car's black with black interior, but I'm looking at a new one where it's black and it's like, oh, it's got red interior. That's kind of nice. So it's almost like that. That's what like the rooftop almost needed, was like, it's black. It's really nice. But if you have that red leather interior, which would have been the fire, it's kind of like, oh, it's that nice accent. It's that compliment. It doesn't mean that if you have a black interior to a black car, that's not nice or it's not good. But it's just like when you see it, you're like, oh, that's kind of, that just would have added that extra stakes as well, right? The stakes, not only do you have him coming after you and you're on the roof and it's this awkward slant and you're trying to get down and all this shit, you have it on fucking fire, you know? So it's just that little bit.
You know, imagine that, imagine you guys out there listening to this, you know, that scene where they're in the attic, right? Imagine the smoke coming up, the fire's coming up. You're going to add that much more intensity and panic to the scene because Rachel and Jamie got to get out of this house, not just because there's a killer after them, because all that damn house is on fire at the same time. And could you imagine seeing Rachel climbing up, you know, scraping her nails on the roof, and you just see the flames around her just getting bigger? I mean, my God, it just would have, I mean, not that the scene isn't great to begin with. It's a great scene. Sometimes I really wish they would have gone for that home run with that moment, because it just would have just solidified it even more. So it maybe, to me, might have been my favorite of all, but we're getting to that now here in a moment. So that's my number 2.
Yes. Okay, my number one, and this was so hard because there's another shot that I wanted to get on here. I wish this was a top 11, really. So there's one other thing I have to mention, but I can't include these as the same because.
Why don't you do an honorable mention and mention it and then do your number 1?
Okay, all right. My honorable mention, and I should have put. Now that I think about it, I should have put this somewhere on the list. But my honorable mention is when Tommy Doyle looks out through the window and sees what actually is Deborah Hill dressed as the Shape standing in silhouette across the street. It is, I mean, that right there, if you know your Hitchcock, if you know your Twilight Zone, that is that classic. Oh my God. And the music that's playing, and he looks out and he's like, oh, and he goes, Laurie, the boogeyman's outside. Tommy, just 1 second. Laurie, he's out there, you know? And of course she looks out and he's gone, right? It's an iconic shot. It's iconic. And I would be remiss if I did not at least mention it, because it is one of my favorite shots of the entire film and could easily have wound up on here. But because we're trying to be decisive, you know, we have to pick. But look, I could switch. Really, I could switch maybe. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to switch. It's hard to switch some things, but you know what I mean. Like it's iconic. So I had to mention that because it's one of my favorite shots in the whole fucking movie. Okay, my number 1, ladies and gentlemen, my number 1 most iconic moment in the original Halloween from 1978 is, drum roll, please, when Michael Myers sits up behind Laurie Strode. Look, I mean, ever since I was a kid, I thought it was just brilliant. I thought it was awesome. Again, if you know your Hitchcock, if you know your Twilight Zone, it's just so, I mean, imagine seeing that in 1978. There are people that, I mean, you can't, it's so hard to really understand what that would have been like. Yeah. And I know some people might even say in the chat, oh, there's a YouTube, video online where there's that scene and you hear the audience reaction. I'm aware of it. I've seen it, but it's I don't know. It might be. It's very easy to fake. It's extraordinarily easy to fake if you know what you're doing. I could do it tomorrow like that, no problem with anything. If you know your way around audio and video editing, and I mean, you could do it. You know what I mean? It's very easy to fake. Do I think it's real? Yeah, it could be. It could be. But that being said, it is iconic. She's leaning against the door. And of course, it's all in the execution. The way Nick Castle sits up, turns his head. But see what? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say what makes the scene is not just him sitting up and turning his head. It's that Laurie is in focus and Nick Castle is out of focus.
That's what I was going to say. That's what makes it so great.
Right. Now, when he sits up and he turns his head, you could, and today there may be some filmmakers that would do this, rack focus. So now Laurie becomes out of focus and Myers becomes in focus. Almost that da-da moment, right? Like, oh, by the way, in case you missed it, look what's in the background. So for those of you that might not be familiar with the technique, a rack focus is something where, like, if I put, let's say I put this water bottle down here, right? And let's say it's in focus. Doesn't quite look like it is, but let's say it is. And somebody walks into the room over here and he's out of focus. The shot does not change, but all of a sudden you'll see the water bottle become out of focus and the guy back here become in focus. So you just, the focus perspective changes. Okay. And you could have done that in that scene. And modern day horror films, I would totally buy them doing that.
Sure.
But the creative decision for Carpenter to tell Cundy not to do that, to keep him in focus, to keep him as the shape, to keep him as the boogeyman, to keep him as this blurry thing in the background, but we can clearly see him sitting up and turning, is brilliant. And that's what makes, I don't know if it, well, I can't speak for anybody else, but I don't know if, certainly it would still be on my top 10 list, but I don't know if it would be my number one if they had chosen to rack focus and show him clearly.
No,
and it's an iconic moment. And of course, she gets up, unbeknownst to him. He stands up, begins the walk over to her. I mean, it's the way he sits up, turns, and as he turns, that's when you hear bump,
right,
bump, bump. It's one of my favorite moments in the entire movie. Whenever I'm watching Halloween with somebody who's never seen the film before, there's many moments in the movie that I will watch them watching the film because I want to see how they, react to it.
Yep.
But that is undoubtedly my favorite. When it comes to that moment, I'm like, I'm now watching that because I want to see how because it's just so iconic. So that's my number one.
No, I agree. And I think had they pulled focus and done the rack focus, it would change the whole scene. And I don't think we would talk about it today the way we talk about it now, because it's probably my all-time favorite scene of all Halloween films, except for the one I'm about to mention here. It's such a, I mean, the thought process, and I bet you they probably tried it. I bet you they probably went, maybe they went both ways, or maybe Carpenter,
sure.
Or it was a one take, like Carpenter knew, like, keep it out of focus. I would have loved to have been in that moment, in that creative decision between him and Cundy, like sitting there mulling over, like, all right, what do you want to do? You want to do this way? And just, what? This is how we're going to do it, and that's it,
Absolutely. And like you said, they may have shot it both ways. I mean, I don't know. You have to talk to John Carpenter about that, obviously, but
sure.
But definitely it was that creative technique, because it changes the feeling and the dynamic of the shot. If you were to do that, it doesn't necessarily mean it wouldn't have worked or it would have been bad. It's better the other way because it's more in line with his character, and that's why it works. Yeah. I have a feeling I know what your number one is.
Like you, when you show people Halloween for the very first time, the same thing goes for me. You know, I wanted to quickly, before I mention my number one, I wanted to go back to what were you talking about here? The ending when Loomis looks down and the shape is gone. You know, the reason why I'm going to say what I'm going to say here in a moment is because anytime I show someone Halloween for the first time, when they see the ending, they're not surprised. They're not like shocked. It's like they knew like this was probably going to happen. Very similar to what you described about with Loomis reacting the way he reacted at the end of the first film, that he knew. It's not a surprise ending. My number one, hands down, is the most shocking ending in this entire franchise, and that is when Jamie's standing up on the staircase with the scissors and Loomis is like, no, like, and just screaming off the top of his lungs. And anytime I've shown Halloween 4 to someone, that scene shocks the shit out of someone. Like, they don't see it coming. And it's not a scene that any of us, I don't care who you are, back in the 80s, there's no fucking way you saw that scene coming, and it shocked the shit out of everyone. And that's why it's my number one.
Yeah, no, it's my favorite scene in the whole movie, and it's because you are meant as a viewer to think that it was Michael Myers,
right?
You know, that somehow he had come back and now he's in the house. How the fuck did he get in the house, right? And of course, when you see her at the top of the stairs, and what sells it, and we've talked about this, what sells it is not just Jamie standing at the top of the stairs. It's Loomis's no, no, and he was gonna fucking kill her. He was gonna shoot that little girl. That's how frightened and scared he is. That's how much he knows he can't go through with it again.
Yep. And that's what makes, to me, it makes it my favorite Halloween 4 scene of all time. You know, and I'm not, you know, for those in the chat, I'm not putting it above the sit-up scene or anything like that. But it's definitely, you can't argue that it's not an iconic moment in this franchise. And it's certainly probably the most shocking moment in this franchise that you never see coming.
Absolutely. And it's definitely an iconic moment in horror, period. I mean, it is. I mean, it's just, it was shocking, which is why it's so disappointing that they didn't use that as the jumping off point for Halloween 5. And again, that doesn't mean that I think Jamie should have become the killer. I just mean that it's too bad that they abandoned being able to use that as a foundation moving forward, rather than just backpedaling and completely sort of, yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's a great list. That's a great list.
Yeah, and yours as well too. I mean, honestly, you know, like you said at the beginning of the stream here, you know, if we were to do the whole franchise, I mean, there really are so many great moments. I mean, you know, even just honorable mention moments here, you know, even in Halloween 2, you know, a what the fuck moment or a funny moment, you know, with Bud, you know, sitting there in the freaking cafe, amazing grace, come sit on my face.
Yeah,
you know,
it's true.
Like, you know, I mean, there's so many different, you know, moments in this franchise that we all as fans, you know, have grown to love over the years. The Mrs. Elrod scene at the beginning of Halloween 2. Any Halloween 2 mentions you want to?
Oh my God. Look, I mean, yes, my favorite, and the viewers probably know this, my favorite scene in Halloween 2, 1981. And I think it's my favorite scene because, as I've mentioned many times, it's the most Halloween 1 moment in Halloween 2. And it's very much part of Michael's MO, is the scene when the young nurse goes in to get Dr. Mixture because Laurie's had a reaction to the medication. She spins the chair around. She sees him with the needle in his eye, or the syringe, I mean. And she begins to back up, and Dick Warlock, you know, Michael Myers' face just comes out of the darkness. It's just like, oh, like that is, and of course, Dean Cundy shot that film. Yeah. So it's, but that is, now that's what I'm talking about. That's great shit. And so, yeah, that's definitely one of my, it's not only one of my favorite Halloween moments in Halloween, it's one of my favorite Halloween moments of all time. Sure. I just think it's fantastic.
One of my favorite suspense scenes build up in Halloween 2, 1981 is when she's trying to open up the elevator and Michael's walking to her. Just that whole suspense build up as he's getting closer and closer and closer. You think he's got her, man. You think he's got her in her sights. He's got her nailed. And even when he sticks his hand in there, I mean, come on, we all know he could have opened up that damn door.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Playing cat and mouse with her. And I love that.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, no, there was some. Again, I think it's a far inferior film to the original, but
Sure.
definitely, and there's a variety of reasons for it. But there are certain moments in that movie that are quite good. And that's that. Yeah, we just said a couple there. For sure. So yeah, that's Tony and I's top 10 lists, ladies and gentlemen, for Halloween 4, The Revenge of Michael Myers, and Halloween 1978. Tony and I will probably do this again, and maybe we'll do it with well, we could always do it with Elm Street, we could always do it with Friday the 13th, and we could always do it with a couple of other the Halloween films as well. The only problem is the Halloween films get shittier and shittier as they go along. Case in point to my last 2 videos on my channel. But should we head to the Q&A now, a little bit early this time, since we got some time? What do you think?
I agree. I'm going to answer Michael Anderson right here. Tony, bring the beard back. It looks badass. Listen, I had a little bit of a mishap this week, okay? I didn't go to the barber, which I should have done, and I was trying to fade up the side here to keep it short, and I went too short, and I ended up looking like just like a neo-Nazi with a bad goatee. Rather than like the light beard that I had on the side going into the full beard into the front. So then I was like, oh, well, let me trim it shorter. Let me trim it short. And then I trimmed it way too freaking short. So then I tried to do a 1970 porn star mustache. And I thought that might be fun to do. Nope, that was a bad idea. So no, the beard is coming back. It's definitely coming back. I feel very naked and very just like without my beard. It's yeah. So thank you, Michael.
I understand. All right, Q&A time, folks. Q&A. Let's see what's going down in the world. 193 people watching. Let's see what kind of questions we can, excuse me, bit of a burp there. Any questions we can have, or any questions we have here? Let's see. Grave Warmer says, any idea where I can get one of those shirts, Dave? Yes, you can go to terrorthreads.com, which is where I got this. But Fright Rags is another great website to go to. Horrormerch.com is another great site to go to. If those 3, you'll be fucking there for hours checking out shit. Let's see here.
Oh, here's a good one from Michael Myers himself. Why does Halloween 4 H4, yeah, Michael have those shoulder pads to be bigger? Is that right? Or am I saying that? Yeah, to be bigger, like who? That's right. Dude, that's a director creative decision. It's one that I kind of like got my head scratching. I don't know, Dave.
Yeah, I believe it was just that to make him
bigger,
broader.
Right? Why? I don't know. They need it, but hey.
Yeah.
Got a super chat.
Absolutely. Ethan LeBlanc. Thank you, Ethan. Appreciate that. He says, hey, Dave, do you think the deleted 2018 scene with Laurie in the kitchen would have been any stronger if Michael looked like his 1978 self, considering that's how she would remember him? Okay, well, here's how I interpret that deleted scene. For those that may not know what Ethan is talking about, there's the deleted scene, of course, where well, not really a deleted scene. It's more of the scene is still there, but they sort of just cut that part of the scene out, where Laurie takes the gun and puts it to her chin. And of course, the shot comes over here and we see Michael Myers actually in the pantry, in the doorway. But of course, it's Michael Myers as we know him to be now. I never really took that to mean, I don't interpret that scene that Laurie is thinking about Michael at that moment, and therefore that's the representation of what he looks like to her in his mind. That, to me, when I see Michael in the doorway there, juxtaposed against, like in contrast with Laurie with the gun to her chin, it's the representation of why she feels she needs to do that. He's still looming over her. So could you have had him look like 1978 Michael? Yeah, they could have gone out of their way to try and replicate a mask that sort of looked like that. They didn't do that, which is probably the main reason why he looks like that. But it's not necessarily that she's thinking about him. Like, she's not thinking of him standing in the doorway, right? He's just there as that overall symbolism of what has her feeling the way she does. He's just, that's for you, the audience. It's not necessarily for her. It's to tell you that this is why, that he still has a hold on her, essentially. So it didn't really bother me. I don't think the scene necessarily would have been if the intent of the scene was to convey that, it conveyed that. So I don't think it necessarily would have been stronger. That's how I sort of but it might have been cool for the fans, maybe as like an Easter egg. But I don't know, Tony.
What was the question? Like a moment. What was the damn question?
Tony says yes.
No, wait, time out. No, because no, in fairness, in fairness, because I didn't. I'm not a like. I hate to. I'm not like not a fan of the 2018 film. I'm not a fan of it for what they want to sell it to me. I'm a fan of it for what I interpret it to be. Right, if that makes sense. Yeah, sure. I just purchased it off of iTunes here not too long ago for $7.99 because I caved, although I would have paid only $5 or less for it. And they don't have the same things that are on the Blu-ray and DVD, although I do know that some of those scenes are now on YouTube. I just haven't had a chance to watch it, so I didn't see the scene that you're talking about, and it's not on my iTunes extras. The things on my iTunes extras that they gave me there were some deleted scenes, but that wasn't one of it. One was the cheerleaders doing the Haddonfield chant. The other was the kid, the boyfriend gets arrested. I saw that scene. And then a lot of it's just commentary stuff of them talking about, going back to the roots of the film and all that sort of jazz. So, unfortunately because I don't buy hard copies anymore. I only do digital buy. And iTunes had a sale here not too long ago with the film. So I was like, all right, $8, I'll buy it. Why not?
Okay, cool.
So I can't really add to it because I haven't seen it.
No worries at all. Kevin Fishgall. Thank you, Kevin. Hey guys, just want to let you know, tell you the show is awesome. I look forward to two dudes and some BS every week. Thank you. You're more than welcome, Kevin. Thank you for tuning in and supporting the show and the channel. Much appreciated. Yes, let's see here.
Oh, Dr. Booze asked me, Tony, did you see The Dirt? Yes, that's the Motley Crue biopic. In fact, I'm rereading it right now. I'm also rereading Heroin Diaries as well, too. And yes, they did a great job. I was telling Dave about that before the stream, that he should definitely check it out. They did a fantastic job. I don't give a fuck what the critics' ratings are, because critics are like over-glorified used car salesmen, and I don't buy what they sell me.
Print it on a t-shirt, folks. Let's see here. Josh John says, either of you guys see Big Trouble in Little China? Thoughts? Yes. Oh, yeah. I have seen Big Trouble in Little China, and I like it. It's a funny, satirical, cheesy, off the wall kind of just, it's silly, but in that satirical kind, like you have to settle in for that kind of a movie. And I think if you're prepared to watch that kind of a movie, I think you'll thoroughly enjoy yourself. I like it a lot.
Absolutely. I haven't watched that. That's a film I could throw on here. I haven't watched that in a while. It's a good flick.
It's been a while. Yes, it has. Yeah. Good old Kurt Russell. Can't go. My favorite Kurt Russell film, and there's a lot of them, but my favorite is Breakdown. I love fucking Breakdown.
Oh, yeah. My favorite Kurt Russell film, I got to go with Overboard with him and Goldie Hawn.
It's great.
I still love that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Escape from New York, in LA, those are great films. And The Thing, he did that.
Oh, The Thing is great too. Yeah.
But it's him with Goldie Hawn and Overboard. That is a classic 80s film.
Overboard is fantastic. Super chat, Tyler Trigg. Thank you, Tyler. You guys, thoughts on Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Leatherface as a character? Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I really like the first one. It's a classic, of course. And Leatherface as a character. Leatherface is a good character, but like he's pretty he's even more sort of funny enough. Leatherface is yeah, what am I trying to say? He's not very three-dimensional. So in order, like, he's not Freddy, right? He doesn't go into your dreams, so he can be anywhere at any time. He's not like Jason, where he inhabits a certain section of the woods. Leatherface, look, he's a great character, but in order for there to be a Leatherface movie, you have to have, he's more along the lines of a Jason in the sense that you have to rely on totally dumb people going into a dangerous place, even though after they know it's a dangerous place. And I think that's why the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was never a profitable, lucrative series per se, because it can work as a one-off. But after you've done that once, it's not like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Leatherface is going to find himself in Ohio or find himself in another place, or like it's very reliant on a very specific area of Texas. So I mean, it's just kind of like you have to rely on teenagers or kids or whatever going to this one location. That becomes very repetitive, very much like Jason. So now they did do a couple of sequels, of course. They did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 with Dennis Hopper, I believe, and they did a a reboot and a prequel. But as you can see, it's not really taken off, is it? And that's because I think you paint yourself into sort of a corner with, he's a cool character, but I think he's got a shorter shelf life than even Michael does, per se, almost.
Well, I agree. Look, some people have asked me, now that I started to do like the Michael Myers cosplay photo shoots, am I going to do any other ones? I have Jason down the pipe. I want to do a Freddy one. I'm probably going to do that with Dave though, because Dave's got the right physique that I'm looking for. Because I'm very particular about that. And Leatherface for sure. I'll probably do something with him. Because do I put him up in as far as the Mount Rushmore? Because you got to think of like Chucky, you got to think of like Ghostface. I mean, I guess he's up there, but I think with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I like the films. Me personally, I enjoy them, but it seems to be a taster choice with the horror community. It's weird with this particular franchise. Either people like it or they don't. There's no in between. I don't know if you've ever come across that same thing with it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I do. I have noticed that. Yeah.
Like with the horror community, it's pretty unanimous with Halloween, Nightmare, Friday, Child's Play, and Scream. Chainsaw, it's a little different. Either, I'm not saying people don't like Hooper's original one. It just seems like either people liked it or didn't like it. It's just weird. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. In terms of the Mount Rushmore of horror characters, I mean, you really have to sort of divide that into sections, because you can't leave out, you can't leave out Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and Dracula either. Right. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, if you want to say Mount Rushmore, that's what? How many heads is that? 4 or 5? Right. So
Sitting Bull is off to the side there.
Yeah. So whenever you say Mount Rushmore, you have to remember you've limited yourself to 4 choices. True. Right. So it's kind of like,
And you're right. When you leaving off Dracula, Frankenstein, and Wolfman and the Mummy, that's they set the tone for where we're at today. I mean,
right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. Chris Baber says, do you think if they had $50 more
Chris,
dollars?
Whoa, Chris, thank you so much. Now that you're here and I can tell you it publicly, thank you so much for this mask. I've been waiting for you to join the chat here, and so I can publicly thank you for it. He is the reason why, folks, I'm able to do these Michael Myers photo shoots. So thank you, Chris. Sorry, Dave, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. Do you think if they had $50 or more Night 78 budget, it would have been cool to see Paul at least once? I think it's unnecessary, really, at the end of the day. I think it's unnecessary. Because let's not forget, Paul was John Carpenter.
That's true.
So I get what you're saying, though, Chris. I get what you're saying. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Let's see here.
I'm scrolling back up. Hold on.
Oh, yeah. No problem at all. Good question, though, but I think it's unnecessary.
Let's see.
Ethan LeBlanc, super chat. Thank you, Ethan. Dave, do you have a favorite voice role that you ever played? And Tony, do you have a favorite photograph you ever took? Love the show. Keep doing y'all's thing. Favorite voiceover that I've ever done. I don't think I have something specific, but I definitely can tell you that I really enjoy doing movie trailers. Movie trailers are always fun to do, whether it's for Disney or whether it's horror or whatever the case was. Like I was fortunate enough to do some trailers for the first It, which came out a couple years ago, and I was also fortunate enough to actually do some trailers for Get Out as well. And but there's so many guys that do the trailers that it depends on, like, sometimes and of course depends on the markets, right? Sometimes I'll be doing them just for the Canadian market, but it might seep over into the US as well. Sometimes it's just for a specific US market. It all depends. Like, there's many different guys that do the trailer voice and do that kind of stuff, but trailers are a lot of fun to do because they're just really cool to do. And, I'll be honest, they pay well for a very short amount of time. short amount of time, right? You know, you're in and out of there in maybe an hour or so, and away you go. So and sometimes less than that, depending on how many cut downs there are and how many versions there are that you have to do. Because sometimes you have to say, you know, coming soon, you know, like, so, you know, at the end, I might have to say, you know, starts Friday, coming soon, starts today, starts tomorrow, starts February. So, you know, whatever it is, right? There's a couple of, you know, versions you have to cut down, all that kind of jazz. So, but trailers are always fun to do. Network promos, things like that. My least favorite are audiobooks, and that's probably why I've never done one. Because audiobooks, my hat goes off to the voice actors that do audiobooks, but unfortunately, it's far too tedious for me to actually do an audiobook. It's just crazy insane.
Very cool. Well, just in case if my clients should ever happen to watch this video, which I highly doubt, all my clients are my favorites because they put food on my table, pay my bills, and I get to do what I love to do for a living, and make it a career. But my favorite photograph, actually, I have it right here. It's the first photograph I ever developed in a dark room when I was in the 7th grade. I don't know if you guys can see that because of the reflection. It's of the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers. I took this photograph back in 1993. When I was in 7th grade, and it was like I said, it was the very first photograph that I ever developed in a dark room, on my own, unassisted by a teacher, and obviously never foreseeing what was going to happen less than 10 years later. So and it's hanging in my office. It is by far my favorite photograph that I ever took.
Very cool, and for good reason, of course, too. Let's see here. Let's see. What do we got? What do we got? Mark Warling says, "Hey guys, do you think in the first Halloween Michael is thinking of the ghost idea when he is looking at Bob with the head tilt? I think he was thinking of doing." Oh, I see what you're saying. No. It's funny how fans talk about it like it's so real, like it actually happened. I love you guys. You guys are hilarious. Do I think he was thinking that? Do I think Michael was thinking that? No, I think the reason why he's tilting his head is probably the reason that John Carpenter gave him the direction to do so, which is to admire his work because it's creepy. I don't think he was there going, you know, I could actually use those glasses and get a sheet off of that guest room down the hall and pretend to be a ghost. No, I don't think he was doing that. I think he was just going, huh, you're fucking dead. I fucking murdered you. You know, like something cold and calculated just running through his head. Like he's sick. He's sick.
Almost like an eccentric artist who's admiring his own work, you know?
Yes, exactly. It's morbid and weird. That's what I think he was doing. I think you I love it when people are like, do you think that Dr. Loomis might have stopped off to get a burger? And it's like, guys, it's a fictional story. None of that. No, I actually think that did not happen at all. I love you guys. Okay. Let's see.
All right. Next question. Hang on, guys. Dr. Boo's Tony, favorite New England pizza. I like all pizza from New York, except for Ray's. Ray's is not, like, I know that's the touristy thing to do, but if you can find any mom and pop restaurant in New York or in Connecticut, Boston, there's a place in my town that I grew up in called Alexia's. That they were really good. They were a Greek Italian restaurant, a very small little place. You know, they would get a guy in there every Friday night singing Italian music. Many dates there in high school. But their pizza was banging. They've got some decent pizza here down in the South, but Southern food and Southern pizza, it's different. It's not the same. I don't know if it's the sauce or whatever, but what about up in Toronto? Any good pizza shops up there, Dave?
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, there's tons. I think Toronto just recently was voted. What was this? Just recently. Hang on a sec here. Let me see and quickly bring this up.
I'm not saying the South doesn't have good pizza places, just in case if you're.
Oh, no, it does. It does. Yeah, I can't fucking find this. Yeah, no, Toronto has some great, like we have the regular chains, like, you know, your pizza and all that, you know, your Domino's and all that kind of shit. But there's definitely some real good mom and pop shops that make some great pizza. I haven't had pizza in a long time. I should have
Same
some.
here. I haven't had pizza since the Patriots won the Super Bowl. I had it that day at the stadium.
I haven't had pizza in probably a couple years.
Oh, really?
That's yeah. That's how long it's been. I should fucking just have one big giant pizza and just get all fat and lie on the couch. And anyway, so let's see. Blurry Face says, Dave and Tony, thoughts on an American Werewolf in London, and what's your favorite werewolf movie? Well, Blurry Face, I
just saw that for the first time this past October. Not even gonna lie, it's the first time I saw it.
American Werewolf in London.
Yeah,
I love that movie.
I was a late bloomer to that one.
Yeah, I really like that movie. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I really like that movie. I have not seen its sequel, An American Werewolf in Paris, but I think my favorite werewolf movie, I'm going to go a little unorthodox here. Probably not anybody's going to think of this, but and it's a little cheesy, I admit, but there's some nostalgia there, is fucking Teen Wolf. With Michael J. Fox. I think it's a fun, goofy, silly mid-80s. I think it was 1985. And yeah, it's a fun, that would be probably my favorite werewolf movie. Now, my favorite horror werewolf movie, okay, yeah, it's going to be An American Werewolf in London. But overall, I'm definitely going to say Teen Wolf.
For me, I'm going to have to go with, okay, well, here's how I'm going to break it up. My favorite werewolf costume, you know, as far as like what it was present on screen, will always be from Michael Jackson's Thriller, the beginning there, where he turns into the werewolf.
Yes.
That costume designer, whoever designed Michael in that werewolf costume, did a fucking killer job, because no one has come close to it. The eyes and everything, and just the whole, I mean, the transformation was great, but just like the end results and the payoff, to me, that's the best looking werewolf. But I obviously have to go to the classic black and white Wolfman.
Yes.
Classic black, that to me would be, you know, the one I would go to and watch. I like Teen Wolf. I agree with you. The Michael J. Fox film, that's a classic. I like the American Werewolf in London. It was a great film. I enjoyed it. But as far as like movie as a whole, I have to go with the classic black and white Wolfman movie.
Cool. Yep, that's a good one. That's definitely a good one. Let's see here. On the sideline says, Dave, yoo-hoo, over here. Hey, hi. So when is your Halloween sequel idea coming? Oh my goodness.
You get that question a lot.
I get that question a lot. I've said before, I'll say it again. It is coming. It is coming. But remember, when you're putting these things together, okay, remember, YouTube's not my job. You know, so I have a lot of things that I'm doing and managing this as best as I can. The more support we get for the channel, the easier, of course, that becomes. And so what I have written everything down of my ideas for what I think where the sequel should go if they were to make one. Now I just kind of have to go through it and touch it up a bit. Like, it's not going to be like shot for shot. It's an overall sort of kind of idea, but it's written down, and now I have to sort of compartmentalize those things into a few different sections. And then I have to, of course, shoot the video and all that. It takes time. And the reason why it takes time is because I take it seriously. You know, I want to deliver the best thing I can for you, and, you know, the best way that I can. So it's coming. Don't worry. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. It is definitely coming. It'll be up online before 2036. Okay. Let's see here.
There you go. You guys got like 40-year wait.
No. Yeah, 40 years. That's right. I'll put it up when I'm 80.
There you go. Did you guys hear Halloween 2 sequel? This is Dave McRae.
No. It'll be like this. People are onto virtual reality, and I'm going, hey folks, how you doing? Dave McRae here. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about that sequel idea. So anyway, Lori, what the fuck was I talking about? Oh shit! Hey, fuck! And then I fall to the ground, and that's the end of me.
That's pretty much it, yeah. Oh, geez.
That's fine.
Oh, okay. Whiplash HD. Dave and Tony, thoughts on Independence Day 1996? It's funny. We were just talking about that one before we started. And its sequel, Resurgent. It's me. P.S. It's me, Zach. Okay, I just changed my name. Okay. I love the first Independence Day film. Actually, it's funny. Me and Dave were talking about. Well, how did we talk about that? Oh, we were talking about M. Night and Signs. And Signs, as far as one of our favorite Alien movies, except for the payoff at the ending. Where Independence Day was more of a blockbuster type film. It was fun. I mean, I remember seeing that in the theaters, and that was one of the only movies that I can recall where the audience stood up and was cheering at the end of the film. The audience really got into that. It was a pretty cool moment to experience that, because I'd never. The only other time I've ever experienced an audience type participation where everybody was cheering and laughing was Home Alone. But then I saw very similar, same thing with Independence Day. Resurgence, not really a big fan of it. It was all right, but definitely the first one. You?
Yeah, the first Independence Day was fun. I mean, look, Roland Emmerich, right, is the director. I mean, he does those movies. Like he does those big disaster kind of films, and it was fun. Definitely. And you got Randy Quaid in there, of course, sacrificing himself for the greater good and the bigger picture. And it was fun. I didn't bother seeing Resurgence because people just told me it was a pile of garbage, and I just was like, meh, whatever. I don't fucking care to see it. It just looked like a nostalgic cash grab, which most things are, including Halloween 2018. So I just, I don't know. I just didn't bother to see it. I don't really give a fuck about it, really. Tommy Ricknell from Sweden. I learned that the SEK is Sweden. 20 Swede shekels. Thank you very much. Tony, your most precious vinyl.
It's going to be a double here. It's my most precious vinyl and my most precious cassette tape, because it was the very first one I ever bought. Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood, Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood, both vinyl and cassette. And this is what kicked off my vinyl collection. And I still have it to this day, pretty much in mint condition. I am true to the Crue. Motley Crue is my all-time favorite band. This album, we'll save it for another day, because I want to keep it to a short answer here. But there's your answer.
Sure, cool.
All right, like 5 hours about Motley Crue.
Oh yeah, I bet you could. Let's see here. Let's see, what do we got? Andrew loves gore. Just in case anybody was wondering, Andrew, ladies and gentlemen, loves gore. Dave, besides Halloween 5 and Halloween Resurrection, what is the worst Halloween? The worst Halloween would be H2O. Because H2O doesn't look like a Halloween movie, doesn't feel like a Halloween movie. I've said it a million times. It looks like Michael Myers walked onto the set of Dawson's Creek. There's a lot of nostalgia around it. I understand for a lot of people who grew up with that movie, Halloween H2O tends to be a lot of fans' first Halloween movie they saw. Sure. It can be the first Halloween movie you saw in the movie theater. It could be your introduction to Michael Myers. I understand that. But for me, in my opinion, looking at it objectively, it's a terrible Halloween movie. It's got Michael Myers in it, great, but it's a terrible Halloween movie. So that would be the only thing. Like I said in my Resurrection video, I would put H2O above Resurrection simply because there's the one saving grace of H2O for me now, which is Laurie Strode. And she's that one constant that you can sort of glom on to the rest of the movie, because as I explained in the videos that I uploaded, you are never usually put in the position as the antagonist in the movie. You are the protagonist. You as an audience viewer are supposed to become emotionally attached in some sort of ways to the protagonist or protagonists, whatever or whoever they are. You're living vicariously through them. You can always think the antagonist is cool and really awesome and have t-shirts and masks and, dress up with them, but you're not them in the film. So without that in Resurrection, because they cut the cord and there's nothing left, Michael was a lame duck fucking in that movie, and that's why it was so dumb. But in H2O, there was the saving grace for me in terms of, like, I could at least, as I'm painfully getting through it, I can at least glom on to Laurie and hang on by her, her boot as she takes me through this film. But it doesn't look like Halloween, doesn't feel like Halloween, doesn't sound like Halloween. That's it right there. I mean, for me anyway.
For me, it's Curse of Michael Myers. That was for me. I've shared this story a few times already, so I'll give you the highlights. I was dating my high school sweetheart at the time, and was super psyched to go see Halloween on big screen for the very first time. No clue who was in it, not in it, and all this stuff. And literally, I was checked out of that film within the first 5 minutes when I realized Danielle Harris was not playing Jamie Lloyd. And like my girlfriend, or she's my friend to this day still, she always like reminds me of that story. I remember the look on your face. Just literally like someone just took the life out of me. I was like, what the hell just happened here? Then on top of that, in the theatrical cut, they kill her off in the opening scene. It just like, it literally went downhill very fast for me. And just, even the producer's cut doesn't save it, because in the producer's cut, it becomes, Alabama incest shit. And just, I'm not signing up for that. So yeah, Curse of Michael Myers for me is the shit show.
Yeah. For me, the worst of the original series, Rob Zombie's films aside, the worst is Resurrection, and it's because Michael is just a lame duck. He's just out there, and all the emotional connection from the past is gone, and so he's moot. He's pointless. It's not it. I don't even know what kind of Halloween movie Resurrection is. It's just he's pointless. As I said in my videos a couple of days ago, he's like a sim. He's just walking around. And of course you got, Busta Rhymes, and everybody knows
that's the reason why
my videos. I mean, it's just dumb.
Well, that's the reason why you don't like it. It's because Busta Rhymes is in there.
No. According to somebody, it's because he's black, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. No, which is not true, by the way, folks. I was accused of that, but that's certainly not true and completely irrelevant. Let's see here. Lee Bauer says, Dave, in order, who is your favorite shape? Oh, well, my favorite is Nick Castle. Then probably followed by, well, it all depends, right? Who's my favorite shape? Who does the best walk? Who does the best sit up? Who wears the mask the best? Who turns his head the best? Who walks up and down stairs the best? You can say, well, God, never. You can actually break it down to that specific. But if you mean overall, I would probably put James Jude Courtney as a strong second or third in there. I think what he did was quite good, but Nick Castle will always be my favorite for nostalgia. Yes. Yeah. But also because I think the reason why Nick Castle is the best is because Nick Castle was just basically Nick Castle with a mask on. Now, I'm not saying that Nick Castle wasn't consciously aware that he was playing a character, but just the direction of just walk. So Nick just walked. If you ever see Nick Castle in person and you see him stand up and walk across the room, okay, he's a bit tubbier now and he's a bit older, but picture him as Michael Myers, and that's essentially Michael Myers in Halloween 1 walking across the room. So, I mean, it's just that now everybody is trying to emulate what he just did naturally. So there's so much thought put into it, and there's so much, it seems more of a portrayal of a specific type of shtick now, as opposed to Nick was just like, I was just told to walk, so that's what I did. So basically everybody's just trying to imitate Nick Castle's walk, not necessarily Michael Myers' walk. So it's kind of hard to explain, but I think hopefully you see my point. I think what made that so special is because it was just so natural. And that's what was so great. And I think James Jude Courtney probably has the most natural since then, probably.
Yeah. I agree.
Like you have to give credit where credit is due. So
yeah, I agree. I can't add anything more to that, but Zach Frederick, bands in the 80s like Van Halen, Dokken, Scorpions, Quiet Riot, Rat, and Def Leppard are all better than Motley Crue. Well, bro, you were right there until you mentioned Dokken and Scorpions. Then you went into Dorkville. So sorry, I can't give you any credibility there.
Let's see here. Let me see. What do we got here? The Film Addict says, would you rather watch Halloween Resurrection, Freddy's Dead, or Jaws 4? I would say would I rather if I had to choose between those. I would probably watch Freddy's Dead because I've watched it the least out of those three. And I would choose it because I would want to see if I really do hate it as much as I do. And there's no doubt the answer would be yes, because every time I have watched it, I've hated it. So,
yeah, Freddy's dead. I mean, yeah, Freddy's dead. I own Freddy's Dead. I have that, but I don't have Resurrection, and I don't own Jaws 4. I only own the first two Jaws. That's it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and Jaws 2 was a decent sequel. Absolutely. I mean, in terms of following it up to the great Jaws, I mean, it's, relatively speaking, it's about as good as you could have gotten with a sequel. I mean, you had such a high bar to live up to. So,
oh, this is a good Stranger Things. I can't freaking talk. Stranger Things season 3 question: do you want to see a rematch between Billy and Steve and Stranger? No. We saw this. We saw the story arc between them. I don't need. Do you need that again? I don't need it again for in the 3rd season.
No, and I wish they also. No, I don't.
And we got a lot of Stranger Things coming. Trust me, guys. Me and Dave have been talking.
Oh yeah,
about that, so.
Yeah. Like I'm actually in the middle of watching season 2 of rewatching season 2 of Stranger Things right now in prep for the new season coming out on the 4th of July. And yeah, Billy's an interesting character because Billy is, you see, with Steve, like, let's not forget that Steve was kind of like a Billy in the first season. And then, excuse me, I'm drinking a lot of water. Sorry, guys. And then he has that bit of that arc, right, where he kind of changes his tune, because Steve was expendable for pretty much the vast majority of the first season. If he had stayed where he was in terms of his development, nobody would have cared if he had died. But he had that arc, which that bit of change of tune, which now we kind of like Steve. So Billy's kind of the same way. Now, Billy is, to be fair, Billy is much more brash and certainly abusive. Steve you always kind of had a sense that maybe he had that somewhere in him. If Billy doesn't have some sort of arc, I predict he probably will die, because I know that it was alluded to something is going to happen with him, because there he is in the shower in this new trailer and he has that thing kind of on his arm, right? Because Billy is like, what are you going to do? Why are you keeping him around? Yeah. He's like, unless he has some sort of arc and we either really start to love to hate him or we start to really kind of like him, he's expendable. So I think Billy is probably going to be the one to go, or at least one of the people to go in season 3.
So you think someone's going to die from?
Oh, 100%. Oh yeah. And it might not, there might be a couple of people that go, because you have to raise the stakes.
Did you see what I was telling you about? Because like they filmed literally right up the road from me at the mall here. Did you see how detailed they made that mall look like it was from the night? I'm telling you about that, dude. I said, dude, they went all out and made that mall like it looks like the 1980s, and they did a really good job with it. So it's good to see it now in the post and then the payoff in the trailer here that came out, because I saw all of that as they were putting it all together in the mall right up the road from where I live.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that look, people have asked me how many more seasons you think there's going to be. Well, we have to keep in mind that the kids are getting quite older now.
You can see it.
And I think I think the Duffer brothers, quote unquote, are correct in their assessment that they will get probably 4, maybe 5 seasons out of it. And I think what will end the whole thing will be obviously all of them graduating high school and going on, because you see, Stranger Things, you can't continue beyond that, because the charm of the show is the innocence of childhood.
Right.
And that's the charm. Once the kids are 19, 20, 21 and moving into Beverly Hills 90210 territory, you lose the charm of what was so appealing about the show in the first place, because now you're going to get into serious life drama and you lose the innocence of childhood, which is the fundamental identity of Stranger Things. And you're already beginning to lose that a little bit. It's not as innocent as the first season, is it? Because the kids are older, you're hitting puberty, you know, there's girls, there's boys, there's sex, there's drugs, there's rock and roll. So, I mean, there's this thing where it's not quite as innocent as even the first season. So I think that, you really only are going to get like 4, maybe 5 seasons. It'll end with them graduating, and somehow like 11 will be able to graduate too, or something to that effect, or I don't know, something. Maybe they'll end up together, or that they'll do that classic thing where you'll see each character walking away and they'll pause and they'll be like, Mike went on to become a neurologist, and I don't know, something like that, because you can't go into their 20s because you know what I mean, like it's not going to work. So love it while you have it now, folks, because 4, maybe 5, and they're done.
What about a TV series that focuses on Dr. Loomis during his younger years when he starts his psychology practice at the end of the day? That's from Robert Tift. I mean, I appreciate the question. Dave appreciates the question, but I don't see that really going anywhere.
No, it's no, no. I mean, I'm not laughing. I just like, no, like it doesn't.
Michael and Loomis are married to each other, so you can't have one without the other.
No, and not everything needs to be explained. I don't know if it's my age. It's not like I'm old, but I mean, I'm 40, so I don't know if it's and I'm not saying that you're young. I don't know how old you are, but it does appear that the younger generation feels this need to know, to have an explanation for everything, and everything needs to be connected. And sometimes it's just great to, no, I don't think we need to know anything about him. He was a psychologist who worked for Smiths Grove Sanitarium, and one of his most famous patients was Michael Myers. We know exactly what there needs to be. So I think a series about anytime you try to explain and justify the mystery and the nuance that makes Michael's mystique. Look, the reason why we love Michael, one of the reasons why we like him so much, is because of the mystique and mystery that surrounds him. You don't have that same mystique with Freddy. You don't have that same thing with Jason. Okay, it's not the only reason, but it's one of the reasons why Michael Myers arguably sits above the rest, is because of the not knowing. It's that you constantly feel like you're in a perpetual state of discovery with Michael Myers, or wanting to know or need to know. There's nothing left with Jason. There's nothing left with Freddy. You can do more movies, but there's no more self-discovery. And in terms of Michael, because they've kept him in a certain glass cabinet, there's always this mystique around him, right? Well, you start to go back and explain everything, even with Loomis, then now you will watch, you will no longer watch those movies the same way. And I think I don't think you need to do that. I don't think they need to make another Halloween movie at all, really. I mean, yes, I'm doing a video soon where I talk about my idea, but that's just because, I base it off of if I was asked, hey, what do you think we should do? Well, here's what I think you should do. But I think you just leave it. So anyway, yeah. Anyways, we'll take a couple more, and then we'll call it, because I gotta skedaddle. So
Adam Carl Green, The Godfather, Godfather 2, Goodfellas, Casino, or Donnie Brasco. Actually, you know what's funny? If you just switch Casino with Donnie Brasco, that's pretty much the order that I would put those films in. Godfather, Godfather 2, Goodfellas, Donnie Brasco, followed by Casino. Dave?
Yeah, I haven't seen any of those movies in a really long time. I think the most recent one, or the movie I've seen the most recently, would be Goodfellas. But I certainly, that sounds appropriate. It sounds right. So I can't argue with that.
Yeah. I mean, Godfather pretty much set the tone, I mean, let me hold off, because I know Cagney and Bogart were doing gangster films way before The Godfather. But as far as what Coppola did, and Puzo, what he book, if you ever read the book, it's an iconic film. Marlon Brando, will forever be the Don. He is cemented in cinema history, with that iconic character. Casino, I just wasn't really a big fan of. I don't know why. It's not that I hate the film. Of all the gangster films, in fact, I probably would take Casino out of that and probably drop like The Departed in there.
Right. Yeah. And that's a great remake. And then, of course, you also got Scarface you could throw in there too.
Yeah. I mean, I probably would put Scarface in there above, Goodfellas,
Right.
Such a great film.
Exactly.
On Casino, it wasn't one of my faves. So
Gotcha. Okay, 2 more questions, ladies and germs. 2 more questions.
Dave,
let's see here.
And I'll take one.
All right. Let's see here. Try to get somebody we that hasn't somebody we haven't answered yet. Let's hear. Looking for question. Here's one. Oh wait, no, wait. Let me see here. Joe Fabiano says, "Hey guys, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, and Leatherface. Who do you got?" Oh, you're asking like in terms of them fighting each other. Oh, all right. I'll do another one after this because I'm not a big fan of crossovers. Are you asking who's my favorite, or are you asking who fights people? Like if there's a crossover?
I think it's a favorite. I don't think it's a fight crossover.
Oh, well, my favorite is Michael Myers. So let's see here.
That was a fast one.
That was a fast one. One more. David Johnson says, Dave and Tony, any Halloween tattoos? No, I don't have any Halloween tattoos. I have tattoos, but no Halloween tattoos. You, Tony?
I got one on the horizon.
One on the horizon, and it's going on his left ass cheek. Okay.
Left one on my leg. I got everything. That's going to be one of my 40th birthday presents to myself is getting that tattoo.
Cool. All right, Tony, last question. It's all you.
Okay, let's see here. What do you guys think of Dora the Explorer? I've never even is that a cartoon or some shit, right? Isn't that I don't know.
I think it is. But don't let that be the last question.
Dora the Explorer is not going to be the last question on this show, podcast, whatever we're going to call it. Hold on, I'm scrolling up here and let's see. Oh, okay. Mark Warling, you get the final question of the night. Best 3 scary films from both of you. Dave, you take it away. Your top 3 favorite scary movies.
Oh God. There's so many variables. You know what I mean? Like my top 3 scary movies. Because you see, you could say that. But I don't know if I would say that Halloween is in my top 3 scary movies. You know what I mean? Like it's my favorite horror movie. It's scary, but on a different level. So it's hard for me to answer that. I take it so seriously. It's hard for me to answer that. It's something I'm sorry. I can't answer it because it would take too long for me because I care too much about giving you correct information. I don't want to lie to you and just pick 3, stereotypes, say, The Exorcist, and I'm not saying that that's not a good one. No. I'm not saying it's not a good one. I'm just saying I don't want to pick that and not be authentic. Do you know what I mean? The Exorcist is a fucking scary movie, and it might be on my top 3, but I don't want to just say it for the sake of saying it. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of hard for me to. It's
all
right. Right now.
All right. How about? All right. Well, since we can't answer it that way, because I agree with what you're saying, The Exorcist is definitely on my top. For sure.
It's a great fucking movie.
Yeah. And I agree with what you're saying. So how about this? Because Dale Bergman, it kind of goes with this. Best horror film from each decade. That's not a hard one to answer. How about instead of doing decade, how about we start from the 70s, work our way up to the 80s, 90s, early 2000, and present? That's an easy one to do.
Oh God. Is it? I think it's not for me. It's not for me. I can't just because there's too many variables at play for me. And so it's hard for me. If you want to answer it, you go ahead and answer it. Like you go ahead and do it, but I'm going to have to bow out because I can't, it's hard. It's hard for me to just say, I don't know. I have to really think about it because I care too much about giving the right answer, but by all means answer it. I mean, if you got the answer, fucking answer it.
The last 10 years, I'd have to go with The Conjuring, for sure. 2000s, Sinister was really good.
That was 2012, I think.
Okay, that was 2012. I thought that was before 2010, but maybe I'm wrong. Paranormal Activity really creeped me out, and that was early 2000s as well too. That was the way they executed the ambient sound. That was really good. So I have to give some props to that. 90s, I cannot not give props to what the Blair Witch Project did in the 90s. And it pretty much was the biggest horror film of that decade. I'm not minimizing what Scream did. Forget the other teeny bopper Dawson Creek's horror films that came out after Scream, including H2O and that. Early 90s. See, horror kind of went into like a really funky time frame there in the early 90s, so I can't really give you anything from that. 80s, Halloween 4, hands down for me. 70s, The Exorcist. 60s, you know, Rosemary's Baby, and you can even say Psycho for those. 50s, you get into now the Wolfman stuff, and I don't know if we're, oh no, The Thing. You can say The Thing from the 50s because that was in the 50s. And then you start going back to the 40s, and that's when you get into like the Wolfman and Dracula and shit. So those would be some of my, again, like Dave was saying, I wouldn't, you know, it's not cement in stone that, you know, but those are personal favorites from mine from those decades. But it's not like, I wouldn't say, you know, Tony Michael said that those are the best. No, I'm not saying that those are the best, but those are definitely, like, if I'm thinking of films off the top of my head that I've enjoyed from each decade, those are definitely ones that I've enjoyed from those, from, you know, the 50s going on up to present time.
Awesome. Awesome. Great answers. Great answers. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us on this episode 16 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Thank you to each and every one of you who tuned in. Of course, thank you for the super chats as well. Much appreciated. The super chats go right back into the channel as always. And next week, Tony and I are going to be talking Hereditary. Tony and I are going to finally tackle the Hereditary conversation and give our thoughts on that movie and talk about the different layers that are clearly in that film and what that movie is all about. So if you have not seen Hereditary and you have been wanting to see it and you want to tune into the show and know our thoughts, you might want to watch it within the next week or so before episode 17. So at least you're kind of on the same page, because otherwise you'll probably be out to lunch and not know what the hell we're talking about. So yes, Hereditary is next week. If you want to follow Tony Michael on Instagram and you're not doing so, his link is in the description. You have to do it. Tony has some fucking awesome Michael Myers shots coming.
And pretty girls. Can't forget the pretty girls. We can't forget the girls.
There you go. You can't forget them. Fuck. No, that's right. All right, guys. Again, thanks for tuning in. All my links are in the description as well. By the way, on my merch store, I got a new quote on. It's the same design, but a new quote. I don't give a frog's fat ass. It's on there now too. It's something I say a lot. Check it out if you want to. If not, whatever. So, anyways, hopefully I'll be back with a video this week if something sparks an interest I want to talk about. So, well, I probably will be, but I don't know what that's going to be yet. So I'll talk to you guys soon. In the meantime, in between time, Tony, anything else you want to say?
Later, guys.
That's it. Talk to you guys soon. Cheers.